All right, so are you ready to dive deep into the world of Chris Sane? Today we're going to be looking at his thoughts on building wealth and investing.
Sounds good to me.
You know, investing, it can seem kind of intimidating to a lot of people, but Sane really tries to make it feel accessible. You know,
Yeah.
like even if you're just starting out with like $5.
Right.
So we've got a bunch of his YouTube videos that we're going to go through.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed right away is that he's got this infectious energy about him.
Yeah.
You know, like he really believes that anyone can become an investor.
Yeah. And it is really appealing, that kind of accessibility. But I think like with any advice, especially financial advice, it's always good to kind of look at it with a critical eye,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So we should unpack some of his ideas and see if his stock picks and investing philosophy really hold up under scrutiny.
Okay, so let's jump right into it. One of his videos is titled, $50 into these 3 stock KS will surpass your full-time job.
Wow.
That's a pretty bold claim, right?
It is.
So the three companies he highlights are Amazon Disney and the Schwab U.S. Dividend Equity ETF.
Okay.
That's SCHD if you're following along at home on your stock trading app. Now, Sane's main point here is that these are all companies that pretty much everyone knows and uses every single day.
Right.
And he believes they have the potential to give you way better returns than just putting your money in a savings account at a bank.
Yeah, those are definitely familiar companies. Maybe we should break down those recommendations a little more. You mentioned SCHD, and that's an ETF,
Yeah.
an exchange-traded fund. Think
Mhm.
of it as like a basket of stocks all packaged together.
Okay.
It's a good way to spread out your risk instead of putting all your money into just one company.
Right.
Now, Sane points to some pretty impressive recent performance. He says Amazon is up over 40% since the beginning of the year, and Disney's had a jump of almost 20% in just the last 3 months.
Yeah, it's hard not to get a little excited when you hear those numbers, right?
Yeah, it is.
Especially when he shows his own brokerage account in the video. He's actually putting his money where his mouth is.
Sure.
In one video, he shows how he's been investing $50 regularly into SCHD. And he's already seen a 19% return.
Wow.
That's over $6,000 in capital gains.
Hold on, wait. Can you explain what capital gains are for those of us who maybe aren't as familiar with all this investing lingo?
Sure, capital gains is basically just the profit that you make when you sell something like a stock for more than you originally paid for it.
Gotcha.
So in Sane's example, that $6,000 represents how much his SCHD investment has grown in value.
Okay, that makes sense. And the strategy that he's using of putting in small amounts consistently, is that what they call dollar cost averaging?
Yeah, exactly. Dollar cost averaging is a pretty popular approach, especially for beginners, because it can kind of help reduce risk. Instead of trying to perfectly time the market, you're spreading your buys out over time.
Right. So you're not trying to buy low, sell high all the time. You're just kind of averaging it out as you go.
Yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but I'm curious, are there any downsides to dollar cost averaging or times when it might not be the best strategy?
That's a good question. I mean, it can be a really solid approach, especially when the market's kind of volatile. But some people argue that you might miss out on bigger gains if the market is steadily going up. Like if you had a bunch of money to invest all at once, you might get better returns than if you slowly put it in over time.
Yeah.
It really just depends on your goals and how much risk you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I guess there's no like perfect answer for everyone, right?
Exactly. And it's
Yeah.
important to look at things from different angles.
Okay, well, this is what I love about our deep dives.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about just taking someone's word for it, but really trying to understand the whole picture.
Right.
So speaking of the whole picture, Sane's got this other video called Tom Lee. The next 90 days will make millionaires in 2025. I mean, wow, that title alone, right?
Uh-huh.
Like he's got marketing down pat. And throughout the video, he keeps using these terms like dip and rip and gap and go. It really creates this sense of urgency, you know? Like you got to get in on this right now.
Yeah, he definitely knows how to grab your attention. But I think we should clarify what those terms actually mean for the average viewer.
Yeah, for sure.
So gap and go refers to when a stock price jumps up a lot right when the market opens. It could go up or down, actually, and then it just keeps moving in that same direction.
Oh, so it's like a sudden gap in the price and then it just keeps going.
Yeah, and a dip and rip, that's when the price drops suddenly, but then quickly bounces back up.
Okay, so is he suggesting that there are ways to make money whether the market goes up or down?
Kind of,
Yeah.
yeah. But that's where things get a little tricky. Trying to time the market perfectly, like that predicting these dips and rips is really hard. even for the pros.
Right. So it sounds exciting, but there's a lot of risk involved too.
Yeah, for sure. And it's important to separate the excitement from the reality. Investing always involves some level of risk, and you need to be comfortable with that.
Okay. Well, let's dive into his specific recommendations for this so-called millionaire making 90-day period.
Okay.
He mentions Amazon again, along with Uber, Netflix, and Meta. He says that buying opportunities might come up during those market dips that we were talking about. And he also says to pay close attention to broader market indicators like the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ 100.
Mm-hmm.
He even uses the analogy, a rising tide lifts all boats, to emphasize how everything in the market is connected. Can you explain what those market indicators are? You know the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100.
Sure. Those are what we call market indices, and
Yeah.
you can think of them like a snapshot of how the overall stock market is performing.
Okay.
So the S&P 500 tracks the 500 biggest U.S. companies, and the NASDAQ 100 focuses on 100 of the biggest companies, mostly tech companies, on the NASDAQ stock exchange. So if those indices are going up, that usually means the market overall is doing well.
So it's kind of like checking the weather before you go outside.
Yeah, kind of. It gives you a broader sense of what's happening instead of just focusing on a few individual stocks.
Right. Okay, now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about this other video he has called A Clear Sign You'll Be a Millionaire. This one seems to be less about specific stocks and more about your mindset,
Mm.
like personal growth.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the importance of breaking free from limiting beliefs, cultivating a millionaire mindset, and having faith in yourself.
Yeah, I think that's an important aspect that often gets ignored in financial advice.
Yeah.
Building wealth, it's not just about numbers, it's also about overcoming mental hurdles and developing resilience.
Right. Because it's one thing to know what to do, but it's another thing to actually do it and stick with it when things get tough.
Exactly. And I think that's where Sane's emphasis on mindset comes in. He's trying to encourage people to not just understand finances, but to really believe in themselves and their ability to achieve their goals.
So it's like he's trying to create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
If you believe you can become wealthy, you're more likely to make it happen.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. The power of belief is a real thing. Now, obviously, it's not a guarantee, but having a positive mindset and visualizing your goals can definitely influence your actions and your results.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from specific stock picks to broader market trends and even the power of mindset. But before we move on, I want to get your take on something.
Okay.
Sane's videos are packed with info, but he presents it in a way that's so engaging, almost hypnotic. Do you ever worry that people might get swept up in the excitement and overlook some of the risks?
That's a really good point, and I think it's super important to be mindful when you're consuming financial content, especially from someone as charismatic as Sane's. Enthusiasm is great, but you got to remember that investing always has risks. Nobody can guarantee future returns, and if you just blindly follow someone else's advice without doing your own research, that can be really dangerous.
So it's all about balance.
Yeah, you got to be open to new ideas, but also maintain a healthy dose of skepticism.
Okay, well, let's keep that in mind as we continue to explore Sane's world. We've got more videos to unpack, and I'm sure there's plenty more to learn.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see what else we can uncover.
One thing I've noticed as we go through Sane's videos is that he seems to be really focused on the long game.
Right.
He's not about those get-rich-quick schemes that you see everywhere online.
Yeah.
He's more about finding solid companies and just sticking with them over time,
Yeah.
like planting a seed and watching it grow.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. And it really highlights the power of compound growth. It's about letting your investments grow steadily over a long period, not trying to chase those quick gains. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It starts small, but it gets bigger and bigger as it goes. But of course, that takes patience and discipline.
Right, and those are two things that he talks about a lot. And I think a lot of people struggle with that, In today's world, everyone wants everything right now.
Exactly. It's hard to resist that instant gratification, but building real wealth just doesn't work like that. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. And he also talks about the importance of understanding market cycles,
Yeah.
right? Like the economy goes up and down, it expands and contracts.
Right. It's like the ebb and flow of the market.
And he says it's important not to freak out when things go down.
Yeah, you got to stay calm during those downturns.
So instead of selling when the market dips, he sees those as opportunities to buy. Buy low, sell high, like the old saying goes.
Yeah, in theory, it sounds easy, but it can be really tough to actually do it. It takes a lot of courage to buy when everyone else is selling.
Which is why I think that whole mindset thing that we talked about earlier is so important. If you're always worried about what's happening in the short term,
Mm.
you're going to make emotional decisions.
Yeah,
And that can lead to selling at the wrong time.
exactly. Having a long-term perspective and understanding how market cycles work can really help you stay the course.
And he also talks a lot about diversification.
Yeah, don't put all your eggs in one basket.
I remember him recommending a mix of stocks, bonds, and even real estate.
Yeah, that's a pretty classic way to diversify your investments. You're basically spreading out your risk. Different asset classes tend to perform differently, so if one part of your portfolio is doing badly, another part might be doing well. It kind of helps to balance things out.
Like a safety net for your money.
Yeah. And speaking of safety nets, he also emphasizes having an emergency fund.
Right.
That's important for everyone, no matter what their investment strategy is. You never know when something unexpected might happen.
Okay, so we've talked about his strategies, his principles, but what about his overall message?
Mhm.
You've seen a lot of these financial gurus over the years.
Yeah.
How does Singh compare?
Well, I think one thing that makes him stand out is that he makes investing seem really approachable.
Yeah, he's good at explaining things.
He breaks down complex ideas into simple terms, uses real-life examples, and he even throws in some humor, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
He doesn't talk down to his audience, but he also avoids all that complicated jargon. He makes it easy to understand.
And he's pretty open about his own journey, too, right? He shares his successes, but he also talks about his mistakes.
Yeah, that's important. It makes him relatable, you
Yeah.
know? He's not just some untouchable expert. He's a regular person who's figured some things out.
Right. It's like he's saying, hey, I've made mistakes too, but here's what I've learned. And people connect with that.
They do, but I think it's important to remember that he's just one voice out there.
Right.
There are lots of different ways to build wealth, and what works for one person might not work for another.
Right. There's no magic formula.
No, and it's crucial to do your own research and not just blindly follow anyone's advice.
No matter how charming they are.
Yeah, exactly. Take inspiration from others, learn from their experiences, but ultimately you got to make your own decisions. It's your money, your future.
Okay, well, that's a good reminder.
Yeah.
So as we keep going through Sane's videos, let's remember that. Be open to new ideas, but think for yourself.
Yeah, find that balance, learn from others, but also forge your own path.
As we've been going through these videos, I keep noticing this theme that pops up over and over again.
Hmm.
And it's not just about, picking the right stocks or understanding the market. It's this emphasis on mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Like Sane really believes that your beliefs and your attitude can actually make a difference in your financial success. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it is interesting. And it's not something you hear a lot in traditional financial advice. He's big on this idea of visualization, picturing your goals like they've already happened.
Right.
He even talks about speaking it into existence, saying your financial desires out loud to kind of reprogram your subconscious and attract abundance.
That sounds more like something you'd hear from a motivational speaker or a self-help guru, not a financial expert.
Yeah, it's true. I guess that's part of what makes his approach unique. He kind of blends financial strategy with personal development and even a little bit of spirituality. He often mentions the importance of faith, not just in a religious sense, but like a belief in a higher power or something that's guiding you on your path.
So it's not just about the numbers. It's about having the right mindset, believing in your ability to achieve financial freedom.
Yeah, exactly. He wants people to really think about what wealth means to them. Not just like dollar signs, but, their values, their passions, what really makes them happy.
Because ultimately, money is just a tool, right? It's a means to an end, not the end goal itself.
Exactly. I think his message resonates with people because it speaks to that deeper desire for purpose and fulfillment. It's about creating a life of abundance and meaning a life that's true to yourself.
And he uses his own story to illustrate that. He talks about growing up without a lot of money,
Yeah.
how that motivated him to become financially independent. It's a pretty relatable story, I think.
Yeah, it makes him seem more human, more approachable. He's not just some rich guy telling everyone else how to get rich. He's someone who's faced challenges and overcome them.
And he's not afraid to talk about his mistakes either.
Yeah.
He shares the lessons he's learned, which makes him seem more trustworthy.
Yeah, transparency is important. It's easy to get caught up in the hype, but it's good to remember that everyone makes mistakes, even the experts.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Chris Sane's world, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from all this? What's the nugget of wisdom they can apply to their own lives?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that building wealth isn't just about financial knowledge. It's also about having a strong mindset, a clear vision, and believing in yourself. Sane really emphasizes that combination of strategy and self-belief, aligning your goals with your values and aspirations. It's a really powerful message, and it can be really inspiring.
Well said. So if you're feeling inspired, check out Sane's YouTube channel. He's definitely got a unique approach, and his energy is contagious. But remember, everyone's financial journey is different. Do your own research, get advice from qualified people if you need it, and make decisions that feel right for you.
Yeah, take control of your financial future. Be an active participant in your own success. And that's what Sane's all about, empowering people to create the lives they want.
All right, folks, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of investing and wealth building. Keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.